Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We would like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet runs now through March 30th with high-quality action throughout, including the Florida Derby on Saturday, March 29th. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Thanks for joining us. A little bit later on, we'll be joined by Ren Carothers. They have a couple of nice 2-year-old stakes down in Tampa today, early in the meet, so I thought we'd reach out to Ren, get some thoughts there. Also, the sibling, the Flight Line, will have the career debut down at Tampa this afternoon. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later, but it is a very big day in New York. Cigar Mile, Demoiselle, Remsen, Go for Wand. And so I saw that the Cigar Mile was the race of the week on Equibase with our friend Ellis Starr doing the analysis. And if you go to Ellis's Twitter feed at UberCapper, he has picks for the other stakes on some of his other blogs around the internet, so you can check that out. But we'll talk about all of it today on the show with Ellis. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
Looking forward to a big day in kind of the last big day of the year in New York, certainly, but it is a very big day, and they wound up with a solid field in the Cigar Mile. I'm looking forward to it. I have been a sucker for the Remsen for a long time, 2-year-olds. But as far as producing Derby runners, you go back over, 20, 25 years, it's kind of hit or miss. They've had some good years and they've had some years not so much. I think there's a nice field in there today, though. But overall, I think it's a great stakes card in New York.
Yeah, no, it's a great card when you talk about that. Two particular runnings, and one of them I don't know the year, but the year Normandy Invasion won, I remember that was a horrible year in terms of all the horses at the race being so hyped in the next year, and they didn't run well at all. And then, of course, last year we had that great stretch run with Dornoch and Sierra Leone making the lead and Dornoch coming back on him, and that turned out, of course, to be pretty prophetic in terms of the early races this year, and then Sierra Leone all the way at the end of the year in the Classic too.
Yeah, that was a hit, and some years the miss. As I say, I have been tied onto it for a long time now, though, and whoever the winner is, I kind of stick with them at least for a little while. We'll see how it works out this year. But let's kick right in and get a look at the highlight of the day, and we'll kind of work our way backwards. Really nice field in the Cigar Mile, Grade 2 event. $500,000 up for grabs, as the name suggests. It's 1 mile, but it's a 1-turn mile down at Aqueduct. I looked and looked and looked, and I'm not totally convinced with Bookham Dano, but I eventually landed on Bookham Dano, who is going to try older for the first time. That concerns me. The one post position, you're going to have to get a good trip, but Irod Ortiz is on board, so I'd expect a good trip. But I just wound up looking and feeling like, you know what, there is a lot of speed in here, and Bookham Dano may be able to pick them up late. So I wind up there with a tepid nod. But looking at your selections, the horse you like, I have right underneath, and I debated about that one. We're going to go back and look at a really nice performance from Mulligan in the Forego up at Saratoga. Mulligan's going to be the number 6 horse here. Came off of this effort and ran 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. But again, this Forego certainly touts Mulligan as playable. Locked is interesting to me. Post time, Senior Buscador. It's a solid field. Again, give us your thoughts on the cigar.
Yeah, and David Aragona's morning line, is very tight in terms of Mulligan. I always try and handicap, of course, I'll look at the lines if I can, because it does create a little bias when you do. And seeing him at 3-1, I was a little disappointed, but I get it. He's been favored in 4 straight. But I mean, post time 7-2, locked 9-2. Bookham Dano at 4, Cindy Buscador at 6. I mean, that's a tight line. And even though you think 3-1 low, it still could be decent. It was just for me, as I put in my analysis. Also, you mentioned on Twitter, /X. There's also the brand new site, or not brand new, but very popular news site, Blue Sky. and I'm on there as well posting, and a lot of racing fans might find that interesting. But on the analysis I wrote for our race of the week, I mean, I tried to go back and look at last year's race as kind of a, not predictor, but to see what, remind myself what race the winner came out of, and it was Hoist the Gold coming out of the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Now he was sixth, but I always try and look for horses that have been running middle distances, mile 16th, mile and 8th, coming back to a one-turn, 7 furlongs or a mile. But in this case, when Hoist the Gold coming out of a sixth in the Breeders' Cup Sprint came back to win the race, it just was pretty interesting. And I went and watched Mulligan's Breeders' Cup again, and he really wasn't involved much, but he closed 8th to 3rd in that race. Before that, though, he'd been sitting so close, up close when he won the Nehru at Aqueduct at 7 furlongs, and that was Pratt. And Pratt, of course, was up for his last, 4 of his last 5, including the 3 wins, allowance win, the Nehru win, and the Forgo win. So you got a Grade 1 winner and a Grade 2 race, basically. There aren't a lot of Grade 1 winners in the field. You've also got a horse that can rate up close, and I figure Pipeline's going to go. So that puts him second, in my opinion. And you have horses like Cindy Briscoe and Bocadano who are going to be second to last earlier. Who's going to be, middle pack? And I like the middle pack runners better, just slightly, only because I think you got a lot of deep flows. The post time also comes from, 4th to further back. So I thought he'd just get a great trip. And my only concern now is the 3-1, which I think is a little low. But for a horse that's 5 for 10, there's a Grade 1 winner over the track. He's won 7 furlongs. The mile shouldn't be a problem. And given last year's success, I thought he was the best horse. Senior Briscoe, only because if Pipeline and somebody else gets into it, he's good. I thought he'd be a good price. I thought maybe like 10, but he's 6. He ran in second in this race last year, closing from dead last to 12. It's 11 this time, so he took up the same number of horses to pass. He didn't run that bad in the Classic. I was looking, again, one of the reasons I picked these 3 horses, Mulligan, Senior Briscoe, or Post Time, is they all come out of Breeders' Cup races. And I thought that was the key, was coming out of the Grade 1. And then Post Time, again, also, he was a dead closer in the mile, field of 13. He's raced a little closer up, but he won the Carter. He was 4th early. So those are the 3. I can't knock Bocadano. I can't knock Law Professor. I think it's going to scratch, I heard. But Bocadano more for 2nd and 3rd for me, because he is taking older and because his Equibase figures are really similar to the last 2, 105, 105. And I think 3-year-olds in the fall should start to get faster, and he's not yet. So that's why I'll use him in 2nd on my pick.
You mentioned Law Professor. Check later for the official word, but it does seem like he's going to scratch and go somewhere else. Man, I really looked at Post Time. I have him at the bottom of my mix. The post position scared me a little bit. I mean, it is one turn. You have the whole backstretch to get up there. You mentioned the odds. I'm going to be intrigued to see what they eventually go off at. And I mention it all the time. I think bettors these days are really keyed into the buyer figures. And the couple of triple-digit buyers before the Breeders' Cup Sprint from Mulligan, I think, is going to attract attention. They're a triple-digit for Senior Buscador, the recent triple-digit in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile for Post Time. So you have some horses in there. And then the 3 triple-digit buyers for Bocadano just before the most recent race. So I think those horses will take action. But I don't think there's any obvious standout. So I'm going to be interested to see how it winds up and how close David Aragona is. Will the favorite be 3-1, which seems like that's possible in a field like this?
Yeah, no, I mean, Aragona makes a really good line. He's not corrected much as compared to other line makers. And I think it's going to be pretty close. I mean, I think the reason Mulligan was favored is because, again, 3-1 in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and then when he was running the Breeders' Cup, it was 8-5, 6-5, 7-5 in the last 3 before that. So I think that is right. I think he will be favored. Just a question about whether he goes that much lower. I might not bet him if he's down to about 2-1. Yeah. I'll just use him in exactas.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, definitely. All right, 8th race this afternoon, the Demoiselle. 2-year-old fillies vying for $250,000 at 9 furlongs. I couldn't get past the Brad Cox favor from Shadwell Mahima off of the 2 kind of very good for a 2-year-old numbers in the first couple of starts. She looks certainly legit to me. Right underneath, I used the horse that I saw you liked, Beauty Reigns, and I pulled up a replay of the debut win for Beauty Reigns. Going to be the number 8 horse here, getting it done again in the career debut for Bill Mott. She's going to be awfully tough. Liam in the dust for Rudy Brissett. I thought off the last effort, the Alcibiades scared me away a little bit, but off the last effort, maybe behind Mahima, Fortuna Mia, I think is also a little bit intriguing. Carmen's Candy Jar, if you're looking for a long shot, I could see that horse rebounding to a decent effort with Irad hopping back on board. But how did you see the Demoiselle?
Well, I'll start with my long shot. I might see Carmen's Candy Jar. I think Blinkers, certainly Fletcher, winning the last four Demoiselles in a row. But Bless the Broken is my long shot. I'll just say that right now because I really like the fact that she did run 2 turns while she's having. Vasquez comes up from Kentucky for William Walden. Blinkers come off because she kind of hung just a little bit the last few yards. And her Equibase speed figure of 87 actually compares pretty good. The best figure in the field is Mohima at 90. And the 87 is not too bad. The difference is Mohima ran 7 furlongs at Churchill. Bless the Broken ran a mile and 16th at Churchill. So that's the edge. I'm not taking a big stand against Mohima. I'll use her in pick force because I got prices in my other 3 legs. But I like how fast she's run, how well she's run. I just look at race plans with the pedigree and Munnings, especially with 2-year-olds. I look at this kind of stuff, and so far, even though you wouldn't think so, he has not produced 9 furlong winners. 1 for 33, all 9 furlong stakes races the last 5 years. I just didn't like it. It was just weird. And there were some good efforts, but nothing special. And maybe this will be different because she's a Tappet mare. But at 4 to 5, I was going to look elsewhere. So when we get to the Remsen, we'll see again. But I think Mott might have a shot in both the Remsen and Demoiselle. And Beauty Reigns looks like the horse. Now, he did this in 2019 with Lake Avenue. Came out of a 7 furlong Aqueduct maiden win, first out into the Demoiselle and won. And Beauty Reigns comes out of a 6.5 furlong maiden special win in Aqueduct coming into this race. In Mott we trust, that's kind of a motto for some people. And I just think this horse also is a Tappet mare, also out of a Tappet mare. I just think she's got the right off-the-pace style. She ran a 76 Equibase speed figure first out, which is fine because you expect her to go 5-6 points up, which will probably put her in range of being competitive. And 9 to 2 is definitely square. And as I said, then I'll also use Bless Broken and Mohima on some exactas, trifectas, and also on some pick 3 and pick 4 tickets. But I'm really going to make a fairly decent win on Beauty Reigns here at the 9 to 2 because I think she might really move up. And I think I'm concerned about Mohima's breeding pedigree.
Fair enough. And I have Beauty Reigns right underneath. I think that one's tough, too. Another interesting horse in here is Ballerina d'Oro for Chad Brown, moving over to the dirt for the first time in the Grade 2 stakes. Normally I would totally write that one off, and I didn't put it in the mix. But if the odds float up, I may put a couple of bucks on that one just on the Chad Brown factor alone.
Yeah, and you can also look at, like you mentioned, Liam in the dust. I mean, he closed into Mohima, who won by 5 at Churchill. So certainly if you're looking for another horse that's underneath, 10 to 1 morning line, you wouldn't want to lose the exacta trifecta if you didn't play Liam in the dust in some of your tickets. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, the Remsen for the 2-year-olds, which we referred to earlier, 9 furlongs the trip. Interesting late season 2-year-old race. Again, I landed on the logical here. Key Waden for Chad Brown and Larry Best OXO. The maiden breaker looked very good at 7, stretches out to the 9 furlongs this afternoon off of 2 improving efforts. Dylan Davis on board, who continues to ride very, very well. But I have the horse that I saw you liked right underneath Tux for Bill Mott and Ellen J. Foxwoods. Studley Do Right, interesting to me, off the win in the Nashua. Aviator Guy for Chad Brown going turf to dirt, but won a dirt race to break the maiden. Interesting little field of 7 in here. Your thoughts on the Remsen?
Well, again, this is not, we talk about hit and miss. I don't know that this will be like last year's with Dornoch and Sierra Leone. I read Chad's comments about Q Waden, and he did his best as he could to not seem like he was hedging, like we're taking a shot, and even more so on Aviator Guy. But still, it was a concern. And again, 6 to 5, it's just not very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Tuck, even though Mott hasn't started a lot, I think Mott started very few horses in the Remsen. But with this move again, he did it with Lake Avenue, as I mentioned, Demoiselle. I forgot also in 2020, he ran second with Millifuel in the Demoiselle off a maiden win first out. And I think Tuck is the right horse. Now, this is definitely a 9-furlong horse because he is by Tapit, and he's out of the Munnings mare. His damn fancy dress party was, I think, undefeated till her last start, maybe. It was 5 for 6, I believe, was her career record. And, the debut was very mature. Sat second. What I really liked was, when I watched the video, was that Tuck stalked the leader, was lapped on the leader, dropped back from a half length back to a length and a half back, and then responded again when Junior asked him. And that's pretty good for a first-time starter. I like seeing that a lot. So that was intriguing in terms of whoever goes to lead. There's maybe Q Wade, and I'm not sure who might go to lead here. But it puts Tucks in a great position from the rail to be second early. And I think that's the key. Again, 3-1. You expect, 4, 5, 6 to 1 on the last out maiden winner in a great stakes, but with 2-year-olds, you never know. So that would be my top pick. And then, as you mentioned, Dudley Do Right. Very interesting. Certainly done nothing wrong except for the hopeful. The blinkers last out really were an improvement. Also, shipping up, give him a race over the track at Aqueduct, pointing for this in Nashua. And that was the best Equibase speed figure in the field with a 95. He also did the same thing. He broke fourth. The PP line looks very interesting. It says 4-2, 4-2-1. So he broke well, got up to second. I was lapped on the leader in between those calls, and then dropped back and went to the rail, and then came off the rail and rallied. So a pretty smart horse, and certainly the most, tied for the most heavily raced in the field almost, I think, with 6 wins, 6 races with Gun Trader. And 9-2 is square, so he's as good a win bet as far as Tuck is for value in this race.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. I think Studley Do Right, interesting, comes up from the Maryland base and has the X-Man on board as well, coming up from Maryland, but won the Nashua in the last start on the move to New York. All right, a little bit earlier in the card, we kick off stakes action in the 4th race today down at Aqueduct with the Go for Juan. This is for the fillies and mares going the 1-turn mile, couple $100,000. It is a grade 3 event. I'm going to take a pop with a Cult in here off the second last time to Idiomatic in the Spinster. It's Chad Brown. It's Irad. Movie Moxie to me is interesting for Linda Rice. But I pulled up a replay of Comparative. It's Brad Cox's Godolphin. This is the Bayakoa back in February at Oaklawn, the number 6 horse. Nice win. Subsequent to that, ran 7th in the Azeri. In the Top Flight back in April, ran 4th. Hasn't been seen since then, but Brad Cox and Godolphin elect to make the comeback in a little grade 3 event. So Comparative is interesting as well, and I think you're kind of tilting in that direction from what I saw.
Yeah, and again, not looking at the odds, I was happy. I kind of wish this was part of the big stakes. He put that. I don't know why they put it at the 4th and not the 6th or the 10th, but it's neither here nor there. But when I saw 6-1, I was kind of, my jaw dropped. And again, Dave makes a good line, so it might be correct. But, you've got the other Brad Cox later on at 4-5. You got this one at 6-1, who was 6-5 in the Top Flight, but didn't run well. But was 2-1 back there in the ladies' stakes, 6-1 in the Bayakoa, even only 15-1 in the Black Eyed Susan. But what I really like about Comparative is coming off a layoff since April. It's not a concern for me for Brad Cox with his 36% win percentage from horses that are 6 months or more per race length. But it's the fact that that win in November of last year, so basically, 54 weeks ago, came off a May to November layoff. So 6 months, and now it's a 7.5 month layoff, but it's similar enough. And that was the best race she ran all year. It was a 103 Equibase speed figure. She actually had a 102 in the ladies when she won by a neck. So she actually ran faster in the 1-turn mile in that second level allowance last November off the 6-month layoff. So the 7-month layoff, the fact that Frank was riding her, the fact that she did that improved to those 2 races. I always talked about the race that led to a layoff, those 2-turn races. But the 1-turn, I think it was the only 1-turn race, as a matter of fact, was just so fantastic. I got to put her on top. As far as second, I could just do all in this race because everybody's got a shot. A Colt's fine. Tizzy in the Sky saw a line through her fifth effort. 9-length win in the top flight before that, which is the one, of course, the comparative was the second choice in that race. 8 broke. Berlinda, Shitabuti for Chad, Movie Moxie you mentioned. But the comparative, I think at 3-1 or more, I'm going to make a nice win bet because I think this horse repeats that race off the layoff last year. She can finish on the square.
Let me ask you, it's a good chance to ask this because my partner on the Handicappers Report, Anthony Mormino, said it a lot in the last probably year or so. Layoff lines don't mean as much to him as they used to. And I'll ask you because comparative last seen in April. Now, given that, you look at Brad Cox off 180 days plus, according to the Racing Form stats, 38%. And I think, what is your take on layoffs now? Because I'm pretty much in the same camp. I still, because of my early days when you definitely would shy away from layoff horses, I still have a little bit of that in me. But I am much more receptive to, again, Brad Cox with these kind of numbers, Chad Brown off of layoffs. It seems like horses and trainers are a little more well-meant now, regardless of the time off, as opposed to years ago when you'd kind of, the horse is going to need a race. So what's your take when you handicap looking at layoff lines?
Well, so when I look at layoff lines, and again, using race lines, I can break it up, but I really consider what the entirety of the situation is. So it's a layoff. Okay, so horse done it before is one thing. The second is what kind of race is it? A layoff into a 6 furlong, 5 furlong, 7 furlong race isn't a concern, or a 1-turn mile. A layoff into a 9 or 10 furlong race on dirt, I really have to see the trainer being good with it or the horse having done it before. So I know that Chad Brown can get him ready. I might weight his horses higher coming off that kind of layoff into, let's say, a mile and 16. On turf, not as much because you don't have to be as fit on turf. It's more about just having that turn of foot. So a lot of it is comparative, but I consider layoffs now, especially break them up into how long they are. Less than 90 days, I'll look at it, but it's not a big of a deal. But anything you get over 90 days, particularly 180 days, then you break them up, I think, is into, categories, I should say, of what kind of race it is today. Is it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Is it dirt or turf? And then look at the trainer. But if a horse has done it before, especially when it was the same trainer, then I really do think it's indicative of the fact the horse can do it again.
Yeah, and comparative, you as you mentioned, they had last year the layoff from May until November, came back a winner. This year it's April to December, but essentially similar type of a situation. I like to see that too. If you can look at the pattern playing out again, that certainly plays into the equation. But years ago, it was very different. And it took me a while to adjust, but I've kind of made the adjustment now. And before we let you go, when I had you on before we went on the air, I was asking how far you are from Turfway and if you pop over there at all. I think Turfway, their product really the past couple of years has gotten more and more popular, certainly with players. But I'm curious this time of year, 2 of my favorite tracks, regardless of the time of the year, are this time of year. I really like Tampa and I really like Oaklawn. So I'm looking forward to, Oaklawn just kicked off yesterday. Tampa's had 6 or 7 cards so far. I look forward to this time of year. What's your focus as far as the tracks you play this time of year, winter into the springtime?
Well, now we've gotten to the Gulfstream Championship meet, certainly that. I mean, I basically, besides the race I blog about, which I try and do mostly stakes or allowance straight maidens that are in a sequence with stakes for the blogs I do. Besides that, when I'm looking at races, I'm looking right now at the better races, and there's no knock on tracks like Tampa, but you got a lot of cheap races. Turfway as well, but 12 horse feet average. Turfway averaged 11.44, I think, opening night. And then next week, Turfway's got $4 $250,000 stakes races, which are all going to have 12 horse fields, probably all oversubscribed. So I'm going to look at those just on the fact that those are races where if you only hit one of the 4, you can make your nut for the night. But I do look at the Gulfstream races, especially on the weekends. The allowance, the straight maidens, absolutely all over the country. I've got some things set up on my race lens to tell me certain sires are starting. So I'm not looking as proactively at maiden races. I'm looking reactively at them. And then, of course, we got Santa Anita in just 3 weeks. And after a week or two, it might kind of get low. But the first few days, Santa Anita are going to have these really great cards. I heard about the Malibu, and Ben Tornado might be going, and Mystic Dan might be going. So those are it. I try and concentrate on more allowance and stakes, whatever tracks they're at.
Sure. And the Mystic Dan, they're talking about Malibu for the comeback. Looking forward to that, certainly.
Yeah.
You mentioned Race Lens a few times. We got to do it. We've done it in the past. We have to have you on sometime to hit on Race Lens again for folks who may not be familiar with the product, because certainly it offers a lot of, I always say, when you can handicap and you can come up with some information that isn't on the page and other people don't have, you can find some value. And with things like Race Lens, I think that's possible.
Yeah, I'll just give you an example. I make a list of 2-year-old sires that I hear things about, reading Blood Horse and other stuff, and I look at this in like June, July after there's been some, and I follow up in October, November, and I just set a little automatic notice that says, tell me when a first-time starter by Vekoma is running a maiden special on dirt. And I added another sire the other day, Volatile, because they were at about 25% at like 50 starts. So it was pretty good numbers. And I was just looking at my notifications last Sunday, I think it was, closing day at Churchill. And I saw there was a Volatile in a straight maiden race that was their Stars of Tomorrow weekend. And it was a 12-horse field, straight maidens. Asmussen had a pair in there. One was a Volatile. I don't remember anything specific about it. But it was Asmussen, which is okay. He's riding his son. And Volatile, again, like 25%. And I decided, what the hell, if I'm going to be right, I'm going to be right. I bet 20 and 20 on the horse. And it was 10-1 morning line. And next thing I know, the horse is sitting third watching the race. He crosses the line in front, and he's 19-1. And I'm just thinking to myself, not to tout Race Lens, because there's other tools to do similar things, but I no longer have to go really looking deep in PPs and handicap a race and look at every horse. Once in a while, it tells me a horse that I should be looking at. And then, of course, you have to qualify it. You have to look at, okay, who's the trainer? Is it missing a workout? Is there a monster in the race for Brad Cox or Chad Brown? And those kind of things. But that's an example of where I think it's really helpful once in a while, is that all of a sudden some horses actually become automatic bets because of who their sire is or who their trainer is in a certain situation. So that's a very cool thing. And I like to kind of tout that, to use the word about Race Lens, that you can do that. You can really turn your handicapping to some extent to reactive instead of proactive, and find these things and do a lot less research on a race than you might have ordinarily done. It's not a black box. I want to be clear. 25% wins means 75% losers. But for an angle like that, which I think is a 68% profit, it was like 40% before this for the year. You just bet $2 to win on every one of those horses. You still almost doubled your money.
No,
it's fun.
I am big on the 2-year-old races, and that's one of the areas where you can find things that aren't on the page. You look up the breeding, the dam, has she produced precocious runners? The sire, as you say, Vekoma this year, you had to pay attention to those runners. After the first a handful of them showed up on the track earlier this year, you knew. Caracantai is a horse I always look at for win early types. And if you can plug those, if you land on a little handful of those that you like, and you can plug them in and get alerted, that's I think is a big bonus. But at some point we'll have you back and maybe give a closer look at Race Lens for folks who, as I say, aren't familiar with it. Ellis, as always, appreciate the visit. Wish you good luck this afternoon, and we will talk again.
Thanks, Seth. Everybody have a great day and make some money.
Excellent. Ellis Starr, national racing analyst for Equibase. And again, you can find his analysis, complete written analysis at Equibase.com. It's the race of the week. And if you check out his Twitter feed, he has links to other blogs where he took a look at some of the other New York Stakes races today on a really nice day in New York. Again, kind of the big exclamation point on the season, as it were: Cigar Mile, Remsen, Demoiselle, and Go for One. All right, we'll take a break. We'll hit on a little news and notes, and then in a little bit, we'll be joined by Ren Carothers from Tampa. Tampa, also a nice stakes day with a couple of nice early season 2-year-old stakes races on the card. We'll hit on that. Flightline Sibling goes, I think, in the 4th race today down there in debut. That should be interesting. So again, some news and notes first, and then Ren Carothers coming up in just a few. Stay tuned.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resorts Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Always like to look at Equibase sends out, usually sometime within the first week of the month, the numbers for the previous month. So the handle numbers and whatnot are out for, came out a few days ago for November. Always interesting to look comparisons year to year. And the wagering for November 24 versus November 23, up 1.18%, so that's a positive. Now, I did note, Matt Haggerty in the Racing Forum wrote kind of a recap column on these numbers, and he noted, first of all, both this year and last year included, it's November, 2 Breeders' Cup days, and so that helps the numbers certainly. But comparatively speaking, they had the same 2 Breeders' Cup days last year as this year. That said, he had the numbers, the Breeders' Cup numbers were actually up 4 million as compared to last year. So that helped things. But he also noted, and this was kind of interesting, I always say when we look at these numbers, you have to take into account all the factors, and a lot of times weather can be a big factor. And, summertime months, like Saratoga, if they get a lot of rain, that's going to affect the national handle numbers because Saratoga is so popular. And if you have scratch-reduced fields moving from the turf to the dirt a number of days, that can have a big effect. And so I always say you have to look at some of the factors. And there was one kind of interesting little side note that Matt picked up on, Matt Haggerty in the Racing Forum. November this year had 9 weekend days as compared to only 8 last year. And, of course, weekends, the numbers are typically a little bit better. So that certainly, you would think, helped. So November this year to last year, we have a positive on the handle. Year to date, however, we are down almost 2.5%, a little over 2.5% on the year. So again, with December left, I'm not sure we can catch up 2.5%. So the numbers throughout the entire year may be down a little bit as compared to last year. But November numbers were up. Jockey Luan Machado gets another sanction, another suspension and fine. If you remember back in October, down at Keeneland, he misjudged. Keeneland has 2 finish lines and didn't misjudge. He thought the race was over at the first finish line. He was way ahead and thought the race was over at the first finish line. And so he kind of stands up and As the second line approaches, he looks over and sees somebody else is going. I'm sure he realized it, but by then it was too late. So he got not nipped at the finish line. And, of course, social media blew up, understandably. And he subsequently got a fine and suspended a few days. And it happened again. Going back to the 10th race on November 28th at Churchill, he seemed to kind of give up a little bit just before the wire. And this wasn't a two-wire situation. The one at Keeneland, again, you have to know which finish line it is. And there are protocols at most of these two finish line tracks where they tell people in the jocks room or loading in the gate. There's also, is it Oaklawn? One of the tracks, or in Maryland maybe, one of the tracks has a light on the finish line that is active for that race. So, it is up to the jockey to know. But it's a different situation when you're at the, I thought I won the race and didn't realize it was the next finish line, as compared to knowing exactly where the finish line is and giving up a little bit at the end and getting caught. So that happened the other day. It got issued another suspension, suspended 4 days and fined $1,000. And again, social media lit up when he did it the other day, lit up with the penalty. I can go both ways on that. I mean, I particularly that it just happened to him recently, that it happened again is a little bit disturbing. And, you don't want to be a jockey whose career is getting defined by mistakes like that. And to do it a few weeks apart wasn't good. But people are, again, upset. 4 days, $1,000. I think one thing people have to remember, he's not making any money those 4 days. So that's part of the whole situation as well. So it's costing this guy some money when he's having a pretty good year otherwise. But again, that was the upshot of that situation with the second time getting, again, a suspension and fine as well. Same thing happened the first time with a suspension and a fine. And folks are just kind of, what is the proper penalty to send the message? And as I say, I could kind of go both ways in that maybe it should be much more than this, or and I also, you give up at the finish line and you get caught. That's a penalty in and of itself. The trainer and the owner aren't going to be happy with you. You're going to get less money with the purse. So it's just, how much reminding does a jockey need? But that it happened again, just a few weeks apart, maybe. Speaking of which, Paco Lopez goes to the sidelines, and people may have seen this on social media as well. The other day at Parks, he had a horse. And I will say it bothered me on social media that they just showed the offense and didn't show the lead-up. Now, the lead-up didn't really change your opinion, but I think if you're going to do it and be consistent in these kind of situations, in some instances, the lead-up may change your view, and I think it at least puts some context there. But what happened the other day at Parks, Paco Lopez was on a horse who was way ahead and took a complete right turn and came out next to the outside rail. And then there's the opening with the winner's circle, and I'm sure, Paco Lopez was worried the horse may veer into the winner's circle at race speed. Still won the race, but, wound up winning by that much as he's out by the outside fence, and another horse is coming up the rail and closing the big gap. And so he just held on for the win. Subsequently, as he pulls up the horse, he whacked the horse a couple of times, and people rightfully took notice and offense to that. And you can kind of understand that he felt like, it could be a dangerous situation. And so he was in worked up, let's say, to the point of taking the pop. But as many people said, when you're a professional and at that level, and he had the horse pulled up and there was no further chance of anything happening, you have to be a professional and realize you can't just take the pop like that. So he did. It, again, understandably got attention on social media, and HISA subsequently stepped in and said Paco Lopez is suspended. He subsequently put a note on social media apologizing and saying, he's going to step away, have some counseling, and going to make donations to, I believe, the PDJF and one of the aftercare situations. Then at some point it will be revisited. Has he gone through the process to, get a different type of mentality and be allowed to come back. But at this point, there is no end to the suspension, so we'll see how it plays out going forward. But Paco Lopez, again, with the incident in Parks the other day, a rather severe penalty on that one. And as I say, there's no set date, so we'll see how it all plays out going forward. But that's where it is at this point. All right, we will take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Ren Carothers. Again, fun day down in Tampa today with a couple of nice little 2-year-old stakes races. The sibling, the flight line as well. All of that when Racing Across America returns. Stay tuned.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Yeah, nice day at Tampa this afternoon. A couple of 2-year-old stakes, the flight line sibling as well. So who better to reach out to? Tampa underway. I knew we would have her sooner rather than later when one of my favorite tracks, Tampa, kicked off just about a week and a half or so ago. It's our friend Ren Carothers. Ren, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
It's been fun watching you do the pregame, pre-race commentary down at Tampa for the last few days. And the first week or so when I was in doing my afternoon show, we had some other tracks, Churchill and whatnot. But finally Wednesday, I got a chance to throw Tampa into my afternoon handicapping mix here on TV. I thought I had a pretty good day, and it's one of my favorite tracks. And I'm sure you're looking forward to it all year long as well.
Oh, definitely. It's such an honor to be part of this team. They put on such a great show. The main track, the turf course, everything is beautiful and fair. And if you can do the work and find the horse, you can make some money.
And I'll also toss out on the human side of things, Sammy Camacho, not surprisingly, yeah, but he got off to a great start. I pulled up the stats yesterday, 14 wins. There's a couple tied in second with 6. So he's just off and running.
34%.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. And then on the trainer side of things, Kathleen O'Connell was great last year. She's going to be fun to watch this year because over the summer it started to play out. She actually was up at Saratoga this summer and got her 2,500th career victory up at Saratoga. But within the last few months, Linda Rice Pastor is the all-time winningest female. And I pulled it up on Equibase yesterday. They're right next to each other in the all-time leader list. Linda Rice has 2,526, and Kathleen O'Connell is only 10 back. And given what she did last year at Tampa, where she was phenomenal,
Right?
it'll be fun to kind of watch. You would think these guys maybe go back and forth with that title over the Tampa meet. So she's going to be fun to watch, too.
Oh, absolutely. It was so cool to see her take the trainer's title this past meet. And of course, I love Gerald Bennett, who's just been a perennial leader.
You have to pay attention to him every year. There is no question about it. On the jock side of things, Dan Santino is always worth watching. So,
I love him.
Yeah. Again, it's one of my favorite racetracks to play during the winter, and I haven't been down in a while. I keep saying I'm going to get down there again.
I know.
I
keep harassing you about that. Come on, man.
I'll make it work, and maybe on one of the big days you're there, we'll cross
Would
paths.
love that.
I'd love to come down again. All right. Speaking of big
do a race
days
together.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And speaking of that, what the Breeders' Cup maybe? It seems like you've been at a few of the ABR events over the last few months.
Yes. I mean, I wasn't there this time. I did get a call in though, because I had given Dan a long shot to use for the juvenile. It was that 30-1 shot, who did end up getting in for the third spot.
There you go. That works.
So, that worked out well. So he called me live on air, and that was fun.
Yeah, very
because
good.
he was able to connect up his trifecta. But yeah, I know a day like this in particular is a lot of pressure. It's Cataline Festival Day. It's all 2-year-olds.
Yeah, and which is fun, I
So
think.
I have this reputation. No, it's fun, but when you've got a reputation for being good at 2-year-olds, the pressure's on. Like, I mean, who knows? I mean, I could do well here, or I could just be completely wrong.
No. We have complete faith. That's why we gave you the call. And let's kick it off. The inaugural, well named, kicking off early in the meet, some stakes action. Yeah. And typically, by the time you get to the Tampa Derby, 1 or 2 of these horses out of this race will still wind up there a few months down the road. I pulled up a replay because there was certainly some buzz in the debut victory for Donut God. 11-horse field, debut run, the number 6 horse here at Churchill back on November 14th for Brian Lynch. It was a nice win. And as I say, got some buzz certainly. But this afternoon, Naughty Rascal for the aforementioned Gerald Bennett coming out of a stakes win on the turf over at Gulfstream. Tapper's Valor coming out of a maiden breaker at Keeneland also looks intriguing. How did you see the inaugural?
Well, I am completely boring here because you know me. If I can find a vulnerability with a favorite, I will for sure, try to beat them.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay. Well, this horse, he debuted. He had a sloppy track. And a lot of times we see these figures get inflated because the horse had an off track, right?
Yeah.
But I watched the race, and right from the jump, you're just kind of taken aback. And you're like, okay, no, I'm wrong. This horse is the real deal. My gosh. I mean, there's a reason he went off as the favorite to begin with. And it wasn't the off track. You don't know how a horse is going to take to it until they run over it. He just looked dominant the entire time. There's a reason he sold for $400,000 as a yearling. Yes, he is by Into Mischief. But that being said, his mother, who is Stake's Place, is a half sister to Chancelot, who won the Amsterdam. He was second in the Breeders' Cup Sprint and the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. So he's got a tremendous pedigree already from that standpoint. I don't know that this would be necessarily a Derby horse going forward. It sounds like this would be a nice sprinter miler type. He just looks very, very tough. And you got Sammy aboard, so who better to show him the lay of the Tampa land here, right?
Right, exactly.
And then it's like, well, then it's Naughty Rascal after that. And I was going to try to work in a bit of a price, not much of one, with Epitaph as third pick, but, getting on dirt for the first time. But he has been scratched. Those first wave of scratches have come through.
So Epitaph is out for Gary Contessa. All right, we'll make that note. Donut God, going to be interesting to see what he does in the follow-up, if he validates that or not. I love the name, Donut God. I'd love to know how what the story is behind that, because I would guess.
I don't know about that. The story I have not yet heard.
Yeah, I would love to know. Again, there has to be something. But all right, let's move on to the Sandpiper. This one for the 2-year-old fillies. A little bit later in the card, again, 6 furlongs, $125,000. I pulled up a replay here of Andrea for Safi Joseph. I went 2 starts back to the Hallandale Beach down at Gulfstream. Went up to Keeneland off of this nice win and ran 6th in the Myrtlewood. So that darkens the form a little bit. But it's Safi, Sammy Camacho on board. Carol's Honor is interesting for Kevin Rice. Comes back relatively quickly off a November 20th maiden breaker right here at Tampa. But it was for a tag, but for a little bit of a price. That one to me is intriguing. How did you see the Sandpiper?
Well, Andrea, slightly in her defense, she didn't have the best of start there in the Myrtlewood. She's like, she was a horse that likes to be poorly played. She was drawn wide. She got off kind of wonky, and then she was set back. They were going really fast up front. That being said, I'm trying to beat them all on top, and I'm going to actually go with Contessa here with the number 8, another cliche. And I know in the first race, that was a restricted main special weight at Saratoga based on the sales price. So when you see that, you have to you have to temper the enthusiasm when you see, 9.5 length score, right? The horses out of there didn't do anything really major. However, in the Frisette, I was really impressed, even though she was being 16.25 lengths ultimately. She had a really bad start,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she was ranked, and they were all kind of bunched up, even though they were going at a pretty all right clip. And she just kept going on with it. And then depending off the turn, she really knocked with another filly in the shoulder. I'm not saying she was going to win or anything at that point. She already looked pretty tired. But she was still going. That was the thing. She still looked like a horse who wanted to go. And ultimately, as we know, Scottish Lassie was able to prevail by 9 lengths over Snow White, who was 6.5 clear of Social Fortress. And Social Fortress was no slouch. She had won a stakes race, a sorority, I believe, at Monmouth ahead of that race. And so this is a filly also. She looks kind of long or big to me. So I know this is a 6 furlong race. But you do have the volatile up top. She's got a really nice pedigree on the bottom. Also, I know she only went for 40, but and I should also mention, by the way, out of the Frisette, we had Icona Mama go win the Shamrock Rose, which again is state rec restricted, but she won it by 9.5 lengths at Penn National. But she had also gotten beat just 3/4 of a length by La Cara in the Pocahontas. So there's good form in that Frisette, even with horses who's finished poorly. But yeah, going back to another cliche, a really, really nice pedigree on top of everything else. She has, gosh, I'm just looking for my notes here. Where did I put it? You know what? I cannot find where I have it, but I know that she's got it because I was like, wow, they got this horse for 40. So I'll put that for sure in my analysis ahead of the race.
Very good.
But Contessa, he's very good, very much in the vein of a Kenny McPeak in finding these horses at value prices who can actually really and truly run. So I'm going to try to get a better price there. I then went for the second pick, the number 6. And, just reason being, like, if you look at those form lines, that's Dancing Magic for Michael Campbell. I mean, look at some of the names that are in there. You see Continuity. I know she beat her by 7, but then Continuity ran second to Immersive in the Alcibiades. You got Eclatante in there. You've got Echo Sound in there. She's been up against some really good horses. And in the Myrtlewood herself, she had a very bad start. I mean, we talked about Andrea. She had a very bad start in the Myrtlewood, Dancing Magic.
And ran 4th there, and Andrea ran 6th. So I kind of like one, you like the other, I suppose, a little bit. Interesting field in there. And I did note, because I did pull up the scratches, I was curious, Paradise City, also for Safi, co-entered over at Gulfstream, and it looks like they're going to elect that. Yeah, it looks like they'll elect to go over to Gulfstream. So Andrea.
Oh, I found it. I found my notes.
All right.
So the Contessa filly, another cliche, by Volatile, as you know, he won the Grade 1 Vanderbilt, Bombay Tappet, and a half-sister to stakes for a grade 2 place, Fifth Avenue. And the family includes Trap Shot, as well as grade 1 winners Power Broker and Millionaire Miss Shot. So why not?
Yeah, no, I like it. I looked at that one a little bit myself. And off the maiden breaker up at Saratoga, interesting. I think you get a little bit of value there, so intriguing. Also, I've mentioned it a couple of times already. I think a lot of people are going to be watching the fourth race at Tampa today. Maiden specials going 6. It is the sibling to Flight line. Flight of Fancy going out for Bill Mott. First-time starter, 3-1 on the morning line in a full field of 12 2-year-old fillies. What are your thoughts on the Flight line sibling?
Bottom line, I don't think they're bringing her to Tampa to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, if you care about your horse not winning first out, I mean, if you don't care that your horse doesn't win first out, then why? I mean, hey, I love Tampa. We put on a fantastic product. Our races are great, but you might want to try to for a bigger purse if you don't necessarily, care if you win the first out or not. You still might try to get a piece of a bigger purse, right?
Yeah.
I think they are looking to win first out here. They put her in a nice spot, a nice maiden special weight. I think she wins. And I mean, beyond the Flight line angle, the thing that we also have to remember is that Flight line sold for, 7 figures as a yearling for a reason before he even became this undefeated, modern time great. He was coming in with a tremendous pedigree himself that includes the likes of Finder's Fee, Fantastic Finds, Furlough, Dancing Spree. The other thing to also consider is that the filly's other half sibling, Eagles Flight, won his debut, put up a buyer in the 80s for Sadler. Now, granted, both Flightline and that horse debuted at 3 years old, but this filly's by into mischief. And sometimes horses they could have debuted at 2. They just let them have the time. She's ready, apparently. Bill Mott's great at spotting the horses. I think she wins.
Yeah, very intriguing. Fourth race today. It's scheduled to go off about 2:15, so keep your eyes open for that one. As you mentioned, Flightline sold for a nice chunk of change right up the turnpike, right up the turnpike at Saratoga. So I remember that distinctly. I ran into Terry Finley right afterwards, and they were already working.
I was there too.
Yeah. I always see you at the sales. Yeah. That was definitely a lot of fun. 2-year-old day at Tampa. Anything else clever that we should take a look at?
I will say that my price horse for the day, and let me just reconfirm for you what the morning line is on this horse. The morning line on so it's the very next race, the 5th race, and my top pick is 12-1 on the morning line.
Ooh.
And it's actually my favorite pick on the card in terms of trying to swing for for a big, nice price that I think is a legit win candidate, and that is the number 10, Curban Dioro for Tim Padilla. This is a main 16 mile on the turf. She's never been on the grass, yet that pedigree is turf, turf, turf. In fact, I think she wants longer. She's been sprinting at Canterbury. The fact that she's shown any dirt form when she's bred for turf is impressive to me. She's got a 3/4 sister named Wadhu, who raced for Todd Fletcher. She was a winner in start 5. That was the main special weight at Belmont at the Big A. Put up a 75 buyer there on the turf. Now, that was a sprint, but in this case, as I said, this filly's a 3/4 sister. Her sire, Curban, his wins include, 2 editions of the Bernard Baruch handicap. He put up triple-digit buyers winning those. He himself is out of flip-flop. She won at 1.25 miles in France. And then the filly, her own mother, Rasika, daughter of Medaglia d'Oro, full sister to a horse named Shafaf, who won the Grand Prix de Bordeaux. And the families also includes Group 1 millionaires, Nayef and Nashwan. So, I mean, this is class pedigree on turf. She's finally getting on it. The main 16, why not?
I like it. And we were just talking earlier with Ellis Starr, and I was saying, if you can find things that aren't on the page, that gives you an advantage sometimes, and you can get some value. And that's good info on that one, on a horse that, so far is only
enough that I'm probably singling.
I like the whole angle. Moves over to the turf, some turf breeding, stretches out, and off the dirt form, you're going to get the value there. So I'll be taking a look at that one as well. Ren, as always, appreciate the visit and the conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Wish you good luck this afternoon, and the first of hopefully many visits throughout the Tampa season.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. You guys do such a tremendous job. It's always an honor.
Appreciate it. Ren Carothers, again, you can see her pre-race commentary throughout the Tampa card on the simulcast signal, so keep your eyes open for that as Tampa is a few days into the meet. And I said, and I haven't checked the last couple of days, I'm going to have to go back and do it. When I started, when I did the handicapping on Wednesday afternoon, I had looked at the first 5 days of the meet, I think. And the first 5 days of the meet, it was 9 races a day, so 45 races. There were winners from 18 different tracks and a couple of first-time starters, so 19 different scenarios in the first 45 races. I haven't looked the last couple of days to see if that has expanded, but I said on Wednesday, if you're looking, sometimes I think we look askance at some venues and, how can the horse be from Penn National? But they've had a couple of winners there. Obviously, the main source of winners was Gulfstream. They may have had 14. Then, surprisingly, Laurel had some winners. Oh, Meadowlands was a surprising one, too. They had 4. But what was surprising there, Meadowlands, Monmouth at the Meadowlands, that's all turf. But the subsequent 4 winners down at Tampa, only 2 were turf, 2 were dirt. So it was kind of an interesting little scenario to take a look at where the winners were coming from. But as they say, if you're handicapping Tampa, it seems like don't shy away from any venue necessarily because they're coming from all over, at least early in the meet. All right, we will or I'll wrap it up, actually. I was going to say take a break. We're going to wrap it up here, and I'm just looking. I don't think I have my NYRA signal up, or is I don't think it's up, but I would assume they're going to kick off their pregame show sooner rather than later. So I'll wrap it up here. There is an 11:40 post time for the big card in New York. I'll be back in right around that time to kick off OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon. I'm going to look at some Aqueduct and some Gulfstream today. Gulfstream today, first race down at Gulfstream today, Arabians racing for $130,000 in the Grade 1 President Cup. So that kicks things off in a unique way down at Gulfstream. Should be a fun afternoon, though, because, again, some nice stakes action clearly in New York, but around the country as well. And we'll be taking a look at much of that this afternoon right here on OTB TV. Don't forget, Toys for Tots drop-off right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. There's a big box out in the lobby. Bring a new unwrapped toy, drop it in. You'll have until Monday to do that. Put a smile on a child's face for Christmas right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Also, don't forget, it is the grand reopening this afternoon in Gloversville of Off the Rails, our Easy Bet location on West Street in Gloversville. Stop by if you're a patron there for the grand reopening this afternoon. And also today, Clubhouse Racebook, it's the Match Bet promotion. Come on down, maybe win a little extra something. Match Bet promotion here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Actually, I guess that is the New York signal up there because they just flashed by the New York bred graphic. But usually as they get close to they have to have a pregame on Cigar Mile Day, right? And usually it's about an hour and a half ahead, and it's 11:40 post. So I would assume they're going to kick into it sooner rather than later. Either way, time for me to wrap up here on Racing Across America on a Saturday morning. Thanks to Ren Carothers and Ellis Starr for taking a look at some of the Saturday afternoon action. Thank you for tuning in. Again, NYRA pregame show should be coming up. I'll come on sometime after that and kick into the afternoon. We'll start off kicking into the morning with the 11:40 post at Aqueduct and then right into the afternoon as well. So we'll see you then. We would like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet runs now through March 30th with high-quality action throughout, including the Florida Derby on Saturday, March 29th.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.